late summer 1924, and as Thomas made his way back into the kitchen from a smoke in the yard, the undercook, Daisy, took a few steps towards him, then stopped, shocked. "You look terrible," she said, hand to her mouth. And he did. Ghostly white features, bloodshot eyes, difficulty in holding his head upright. "Thank you," he told her. But Daisy shook her head. "No, what I meant was, I am sorry if you are feeling unwell." Thomas glanced to her, and nodded, before heading off to the servants' dining room. "You're back then?" Carson told Thomas, as he entered. He glanced to the leather fold he had in his hands. Several other people were seated, Anna and Bates, and the new footman, Andrew. Miss Baxter came through behind Thomas, glancing at him for a moment, before sitting with a piece of sewing in her hands. "Yes," Thomas told him. Of course, he was here, was he not? But that was Carson's way of showing his disapproval of him. "I do not wish to talk ill of someone," Carson continued. "But you're going to," Thomas thought. "The girl, me Lucina, who his lordship sponsors, long a guest in this house." "Indeed," Carson replied, with just a flicker of doubt, but he recovered quickly. "Miss Ashby is old enough now for you to leave her, surely? She has her own life. Isn't that the reason you gave for your ridiculous marriage in the first place?" Thomas paused in the act of sitting, and glared at Carson. "Well, you might as well all know, as Mr. Carson has chosen to discuss my private business with you all," he replied, bitterness in his words. "She has left me, if you are interested, to work in Germany, no less, with the approval of Professor Rutherford." And then he glared at Carson again. "But I request you take back the word ridiculous to describe my marriage, Mr. Carson, if you don't mind." Carson said nothing for a moment, then had the decency to look ashamed. "Redacted," he murmured. Then Thomas sat down at the table, and unrolled the leather packet which Milo had left with him, and looked at the contents. "He shouldn't have said that," Daisy told him, looking over his shoulder for a second to Milo's jewelry. "These are hers, I can tell from the seeds." Thomas managed to half smile. "Be a dear, and could you fetch the silver polishing cloth?" he asked her. Carson looked up at the mention of a polishing cloth, saw that Thomas had things in front of him but said nothing. Within a moment, Daisy had returned, and she was looking at the things again. "Very pretty," she told Thomas, giving him a pitiful look. Thomas half smiled to himself. He must have come down in the world to be pitied by Daisy. Then, they all bobbed up as Mr. Carson left the table. "What do you have there, Mr. Barrow?" asked Phyllis Baxter. "My wife's," he told her, and folded them into his pocket. "And you won't be able to find them." Molesley, who had just walked in, frowned at Thomas and his snipe towards her. He too got out of his seat, using all his energy to stop him swaying, and walked out with the polishing cloth. He had got to the top of the stairs before Miss Baxter had caught up with Thomas, and she glanced between the door handle and his hand, before looking back to his face. "If you wish to miss Ashby again, do so, you have the right," she counseled. "What do you fear? That you will lose her? Lose him? Blackett?" But Thomas hadn't the strength to argue or fight back, and he leaned with all his weight on the door handle. "I just want to be normal, and that seems to be too much to ask," he sighed. And then he went inside. Phyllis Baxter heard the lock scrape closed, and she turned. But something caught her eye, and she noticed it was a letter addressed to Thomas. She was about to knock at the door, but thought better of it. She could slip it back somewhere afterwards. It looked official. And in the privacy of her own bedroom, Phyllis Baxter found out that it was a letter of unremittance, reminding Thomas that he had one last chance to pay the money owed, interest included, before the matter was handed over to the police. 88,888,888. "I will say nothing if you tell me what you are doing in here." John Bates's voice came from beside the door, and made Miss Baxter jump. She wanted to return the letter, and, as she was slipping it into one of Thomas's drawers, discovered something more. "He says no man in this house would help him, Mr. Bates," she told his lordship's valet, as he stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "I am worried, that's all. He is unwell." "Yes, he is. But Miss Baxter shook her head. Not in that sense. He is making himself unwell thinking it will fix him. She stepped past the bed and held out the newspaper advertisement. He has got himself into debt because of it. And I have overstepped the mark. Which was true. For not only had she slipped the letter back into Thomas's sock drawer, Miss Baxter had also discovered, and made a note of, me Lucina Ashby's address at Cambridge. Once a sneak always a sneak. I am given to understand that the last time Milo came to Downton that she was reckless and fell. Mr. Bates smiled and folded his arms. Not reckless exactly, he told Miss Baxter. Oh, she fell from the church tower right enough. It was raining. But, and John Bates broke off, fixing his foot by the back of Thomas's door, and beckoned her over. I did not tell you this, Miss Baxter, and if he asks, or anyone else me if I have said this, I will deny it. Understood, Miss Baxter told him, because you have spoken to Mrs. Crawley and you know she was pregnant, and had been attacked, Bates told her. Phyllis Baxter felt her eyes widen. Mullsly, he told her. But there is more to it than that. And John Bates proceeded to tell Miss Baxter, omitting only the name of Milo's rapist. Oh my goodness! Gasped Baxter. And they caught the man? Bates shook his head. This is not common knowledge. She hasn't even spoken about it to anyone, as far as I know, apart from Thomas. He told me one night, when he was as wretched as he looks today. His identity is known. That is all I will say. Baxter sank down onto Thomas's bed for a moment, hand to her mouth. Then she turned to John Bates. You don't think ... do you think ... he might be trying to cure himself to be ... a proper husband? Perhaps, said Bates after a moment's thought. But it won't work. Is he doing it to punish himself? That is what I am thinking. And the man? Miss Baxter asked. There is a plan in place, Bates told her. Although Thomas feels guilt about it, and that he could have prevented it. I expect any man whose wife is attacked in such a way feels guilt, even if there was nothing he could have done to prevent it. And the plan? She needs to be in Downton, Bates told Ms. Baxter. Thomas believes she is afraid of the man, and is resisting coming back here. He sighed, and Phyllis Baxter got to her fear. Now, Mr. Bates concluded, as Baxter moved to the door. If you can help Thomas in any way, Miss Baxter, that would be good of you. Thomas Barrow needs as many friends as he can get.